about 1995. They were really, really ugly at first. They had like the flashing stars in the background and all that ugly stuff. I've been using Joomla for about 3+ years now. Really, really love it. But I'd like to get a sense of where you guys all stand in terms of how much you've been using Joomla, how much expertise you've got, or if you're more like beginners. So how many people have never worked with Joomla before, just absolute beginners? Great. How many people have a little bit of experience, maybe worked on a site or two? How many have built several sites? More than several? More than 10 sites? A couple people? Great. So we've got everybody all over the spectrum. So Kristen said, I'm interested to see what you have to say, and I said, I'm interested to see what everybody else has to say. So I'd like to just start by giving you a really quick overview of what extensions are, what the different types of extensions are for those of you who are beginners. And then I'd like to open it up to kind of brainstorm. Let's talk about some of our favorite extensions, and maybe if some people have a problem they're trying to solve or a feature they'd like to implement, they don't know where to start with extensions. So we can talk a little bit about what makes a good one, how to find the right one for your needs. So very broadly, there are 3 types of extensions for Joomla: modules, components, and plugins. Components usually perform a big central function in your site. So the built-in component that's in any Joomla site is simply the content. Whatever is in the content area, that's a component. If you have a shopping cart on your site, that's a big central component that overlaps a lot of different areas in the front end and the back end of your site. Usually components you see in the content area as a general rule of thumb. Modules usually add extra functionality. Often they're found in sidebars and headers and footers in module positions that are outside of the main content, but there are exceptions to that. You can always include a module inside your content if you need to. But your main menu, that's a module. If you've got a header or a footer, that's a module. If you've got a poll, if you've got a search box, if you've got a random image, those are all types of modules. Plugins usually work behind the scenes to add functionality. So for example, if you have a YouTube video embedded on your website, usually you'll use a little plugin to show that video. So it may not be that the user necessarily sees what's going on with the plugin. It kind of works behind the scenes, but the result is that then they can see the video. The Joomla extensions directory, of course, is the central repository for all Joomla extensions. Right now there are over 9,000 extensions available. Imagine that, 9,256 as of yesterday when I took that screenshot. And when you drill down to look at a listing of the Joomla extensions directory, they give you all kinds of information about what criteria you can use to narrow down whether you want to use this extension. So you'll see, obviously, the name of the extension. You'll see a little popular icon if it happens to be one that's very popular. Sometimes popular extensions, when you look at their ratings, are not really that well rated. They used to be highly rated. They fell a little bit, so they're still popular, but they're maybe not as good as another one that may not be as well known. A really, really important thing to look at is what version of Joomla is this extension compatible with. This one happens to work with 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, and 2.5. And the current version, of course, is 2.5. So if you've got an up-to-date Joomla site that's running 2.5, you've got to look for that purple icon. Sometimes you'll see, if you're running 2.5, sometimes a 1.7 extension will still work for you. It will still be compatible, but ideally you'd see that purple icon. One little bit of information that I always look at is this a non-commercial or commercial extension? Very often you can find a great extension that's non-commercial, that's free, that will do exactly what you need it to do. It doesn't mean necessarily that they pay for. Sometimes a free extension can be just as good as or better than a similar one that costs money. So I think of that as a bonus. We always say my family motto is free food is always a good thing. So free extensions are always a good thing too. Because worst that happens is you install it, it doesn't work the way you like, you uninstall it, and that's the end of it. You haven't wasted any money. It can be helpful sometimes to look at what date the extension was added, and if there's a listing of when it was last updated. This one, look, it was added in 2009, so it's got a little bit of stability. It's been around for a few years, but it was last updated on February 17th, so they're keeping it up to date. Occasionally, you'll find extensions that when they were added a few years ago and they haven't been updated recently. Sometimes that means that they're just perfect as they are, they never needed to be upgraded or improved in any way. More often it means that the developer dropped the ball. So it's good to know, it's good to kind of get an idea of whether the person who developed this extension is supporting it and continuing to improve it. If the extension requires you to register or requires some other kind of fancy footwork in order to get it, that's just good to know. It's kind of a privacy thing. You know, some developers like to sort of grab your information if you're downloading. Even if their extension is free, they might want to keep in touch with you, put you on their mailing list, and so on. That's not usually a deal breaker for most people, but it's good to know about. What else? Oh, and of course the gray buttons over here on the right, download, demo, and support. Occasionally I'll find an extension where I click one of those buttons to see the demo, and it takes me to some site where I go, okay, so where am I seeing this extension being demonstrated? I have to dig around, and you know, that tells me a little bit about how important it is to the developer that they make their site usable. You know, that tells me something. Or sometimes you'll click download, and then you are digging around to try to actually find the file. But that's kind of the anatomy of a JDD listing. I think one of the things I look at the most, though, is the rating overall. How many people have rated it? This one gets 4.84 out of 5, which is pretty darn good. And then as you scroll further down, you can read people's reviews and see what experiences they have. Sometimes you'll see bad reviews, but then when you read the bad reviews, you're realizing that someone's saying, you know, I thought this extension was going to do my laundry for me, and I was so disappointed when it didn't. Well, if that's not what you need at the extension, then that's okay. If you don't mind if it doesn't do your laundry, then you may still need an extension for you. So I have a little handout of some of my favorite extensions. I'm not sure if I have enough to go around, but you're welcome to pass them around. And we can put this online on the Joomla New England website to download afterwards. I think there are probably 3 extensions that I install on absolutely every site. And your mileage may vary, but I think the one that almost everyone needs is a Kiva backup. Yeah. It's crucial. One time I saw an advertisement that said, in order to go forward, you must back up. And I think that's true. You can't have too many backups. Some people say if it doesn't exist in 3 places, it doesn't exist at all. And the minute that your site goes down, or your client's site goes down, or your boss's site goes down, is when you realize that it was really what you backed it up. JCE is another one that I always install. It's a content editor. It makes it really easy to not only edit your content, but you can even customize the look of it so that if you have clients who are editing their own websites and they're maybe not experts, you can remove some of the buttons, you know, in the little arrange it so that it's easy for them to use and more difficult for them to mess up. That's what I like most about JCE. The other one I always install is Advanced Module Manager from No Number, and that one is great because it gives you more options for any module that you're using. It gives you more options for where and when to show it. You can even set it up to say, I want this module to show up only on these particular pages during spring, and then it'll change over to something else during summer. You can arrange it by season, you can arrange it by any number of criteria. So I always use Advanced Module Manager. But aside from that, I'd love to hear from other folks about what extensions they maybe always install. Are there any others that I haven't mentioned that you guys always use when you build a Joomla site?
Well, I wouldn't say always. I think it really depends on what you need to have. But Kanuna as a chat and discussion board is really stable and a really good thing to have. I'll build that into a lot of client sites as well.
How do you spell it?
Kunena, I think.
I was just wondering about that one yesterday, actually, because I had used Fireboard years ago, and I don't think I've installed anything since then. So I was looking into whether Kunena was still good, whether Agora was still good. It's good to know that that's one that you recommend. What else? What other extensions can you install? Admin tools. Yeah, also from the Kiva. That's a great one. Can you talk a little bit about what you use admin tools for? Yeah, who else uses admin tools for Kiva? Because I always hear that recommended as one that everybody should use, and I haven't gotten into the habit of using it myself, so I'd like to learn more. In the last presentation.
I did just start using the Kiva tools, and I think it's an additional security that it allows you to have. I haven't quite done figuring that out, but I would highly recommend for an image gallery, photo gallery. It's very simple and very straightforward. It's PHOCA. Great on my clients who need to manage their own images, put these images in specific categories. So I'll set up the categories for them, and the client is it's pretty easy for them to handle to upload all of those images, and it makes nice little thumbnails already. It automatically generates a larger image and a smaller image, which is a pretty big learning curve for some people.
I find that I don't necessarily install it by default, but a lot of people want contact pages, and I try to talk my clients into having a form rather than just having an email link that you can click on. And one of the components that you just had, in fact, is that one that you have listed here is AI Contact Safe. I found that has met our needs for a lot of different things. And I really got a challenge with it on one website where a client wanted an employment application on the site, and I was able to pull it off. And we also just discovered that this was kind of easy, well, not easy, but there was a way to migrate all its settings and everything when we moved up to version 2.5 from earlier versions. So that was nice to know. But I find it fairly easy to configure. You can create as many different forms as you want. You can have it forward to whatever email you want.
Or to multiple emails.
Or to multiple emails. It's not always easy to decide what fields you want, to configure what fields you want. Their interface for that is not as could be, but it's a good, solid, reliable app that I find is great for making forms.
Does anybody else have a form component that they really like? Contact forms or other types of forms? I've been looking into whether there's something better. I've been using AI Contact Safe for a couple of years now, but I've kind of started to branch out and see if there's something better. But as Mark said, the nice thing about this one is we had it installed on a lot of 1.5 sites, and then I'm moving all my clients up to 2.5 sites, and we were able to export not only the preferences for the extension, but also the old messages. So all the emails that they've ever received in that form, we were able to export from the database and import into the new site, so it was all still there in their history. That was a nice feature.
I have another one that I really like. It's not necessarily a must for every site, but if you want to have a video archive, or you're working with kind of an ongoing, creating your own TV station type of site, there's a free extension called Viper YouTube Video Gallery Pro. And it's actually very easy, and all you do is you go in and put a list of all of the URLs for the videos that you want, if they're all on YouTube. And it creates a really nice matrix, so you can see kind of the primary video and then a whole bunch of thumbnails underneath. You can scroll through them. It's really very robust and pretty solid. So.
That's great. Does it work just for YouTube, or does it work for Vimeo or others?
Yeah, it'll work for Vimeo. It basically work for any site that you can pull a video off, although it depends, I think, if it's, depends on layers of security in there. But I know I've definitely worked it from Vimeo and YouTube as well.
Is it a module?
It's an extension.
But is it? Can you place it in a module, or is it like a component main thing? Like some of them are plugins, and
right.
Some of them are modules,
so,
and some of them are.
Right. I think probably more of a module in this sense because I did plug it into a page.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was the name of it again?
Viper YouTube Video Gallery Pro.
It should work out. Also known as.
A good acronym there.
I use one called. In fact, we were just talking about this. I only used it one time for one thing. It's called Front End User Access. It's not a great name, but it the purpose, and I'm sure there's multiple ways to skin the cat, but the purpose was like I did a school, and so there's multiple teachers, and those teachers only have certain students. So they wanted a blog, But when the users, like the kids' parents, like log into the website, they don't want to see like all the teachers' blogs. They want that student from that class to have that blog. So front-end user access allows you to, like with checkboxes, you make groups. And like I made one called, you know, Teacher A's group. So their kids go into that group, and then with checkboxes, you say that link goes on this page. When that person logs in, checkbox. So when they log in, they only see that one link in that module, and they don't see everything. So you can like really, you pick and choose what you want to see and what shows up for who and where, which is really cool. Because like then you can block things from certain people and show other things to certain people, or show it to everyone, like logged in or maybe a part of this group, or you mix and match and do whatever you want. Now it costs money, but it freaking works great.
Do you remember how much it cost?
You know what? I don't remember. It was like $60 or something. Like it's not. I mean, most of the things I buy are like under $100. I'm not going to go crazy. I think there's a couple of things I bought that were $200, but it's like the developer version where you can use it for something like me. I use it on everybody's website, like the blog, right? Easy Blog. I bought $200. I mean, I charge the customer $60 for the single one, but the next customer that comes along is another $60 and another $60. Then sooner or later, I'm making money on it because I bought the developer one. So.
That's a really good point. Sometimes I wonder about that myself. Like if you buy an extension and you get a license to use it on as many websites as you want, do you charge your client that you bought it for the full cost of that extension? What if you're going to be using it for future clients? How do you divide that up? And that's an interesting philosophical question. I mean, have other people been in that situation, and how do you work that?
I would charge everyone the same amount. I think the gentleman's point is great if you bought the developer edition. It's just value added. That's what I would do.
And I think it makes sense to do what you did. If it cost you $200, you're not charging $200 to each person. You're charging a smaller amount to each person, but also not so small that you'd have to sell it 100 times to make back your investment.
And I want to say I'm not really out to make the money on it anyways. I knew that I like the Easy Blog thing was like it's so great. I knew I was going to use it again, so
That's
I wanted to buy it.
Facebook
Like the ease of
too. I have a
use.
client who's been reading a blog component and they're not happy with it, and it hasn't been updated as well as I would like for 2.5. So I was thinking of switching them over to Easy Blog or to another blog component, but then I thought, why don't we try just using the core Joomla functions for blogging and see if that does what they need it to do. They have tags and they have comments, so those were two features that I needed to add, but I also didn't need a whole big blog component. So can you tell us what made you stick with Easy Blog as opposed to just the core?
What happened first was like this lady just at work. Somebody asked me they wanted to make like a blog about food. It's just like their hobby. They go home and cook stuff and they want to talk about it. And I was like, okay. So I'll say it was Joomla, and then the internal commenting type thing you can do, and we did that, and they never did anything with it. I showed them how to use it, and I was like, oh yeah, here you go. It's all set. You just do this. And then they never wrote a blog. And I was like, why didn't you ever write? Why don't you do stuff? Like, we don't remember. It's complicated. Man, they don't like it, you know. So the blog thing, it's like front end. They log in, a plus area, like click this button, start typing, upload picture, done. And that's like, I mean, like they don't even have to like remember anything about Joomla. It's like it's so easy. It's like it's a button. It says write. Okay, write something, done. Save, published. I mean, it can't be any easier that from the front or the back. It doesn't matter how they do it, you know. And that's really like, for them, it was obvious. So, like, for people who don't want to learn Joomla, they're like, I don't care. I just want to write a blog. That was so simple, so simple.
This is Easy Blog.
Easy Blog.
I have a question. Have you upgraded from Easy Blog to 2.5 for somebody yet?
No, I mean, I came in at 2.5.
Okay. We had some issues doing that, and they will install it for you if it's a commercial plugin, but that was an issue for us.
Yeah, that's always something to think about too. If you can find, if you know you have a client or your own site that's on 1.5, and you need to migrate the site to 2.5 and bring over the extensions, it can help to look in the JDD to see what people's experience experience has been with upgrading if they've done that. Or go to the developer's website, look at the forums and say, you know, see if people are talking about upgrading to 1.5. Because that can be a deal breaker. You know, some extensions are available for 1.5 and not for 2.5 yet. And I'm in that situation with several clients where they're running a shopping cart that only works in 1.5, and there's no sign of it being available for 2.5. So they're stuck. Speaking of shopping carts, has anyone built an e-commerce site in Joomla? And what shopping carts are you happy with?
Virtual
Virtual, yep.
Yeah, VirtuMart, pretty solid and very free.
Mart.
I've heard that it's a monster to calibrate and get up and running. Does it have a really steep learning curve, do you think?
I wouldn't say it has a short learning curve, but I think you can actually modify it. So if you only have a few items that you're selling, you don't have to have this huge catalog. But it's very robust in allowing you to set variable pricing based upon sales. So you can set dates, 10% sale this weekend, and then on Monday morning, without having to go back and do it yourself, it will automatically put it back up to the regular price. Being able to put in product shots, and I haven't had a lot of success putting in video shots of products, but it can be done as well, apparently. So there's some pretty good things in it.
The one thing I found the hardest thing about shopping carts is when you're browsing them, they look great. But then like somewhere in the fine print, it's like, it does not come this way out of the box. You have to work really, really hard to make it look awesome like we did.
Yeah.
And you go and you're like, this is crap. This doesn't look anything like what I thought I was going to get. And like,
It's like buying
Or on the
templates,
other
yeah.
side, some of them come with a great design, but then it doesn't match with your site's design at all. You need to rejigger it. So I've been happy with Simple Caddy and with Rock Quick Cart for people who are just selling a couple of really simple items. Like if you have a site that's not primarily the e-commerce site, but you want to sell a T-shirt or you want to sell some simple item. Those two are great because they're really easy to use from both front end and the back end. Rock Quick Cart in particular, I think.
oh yeah,
It's Ajax based, so the page will refresh. This is a nonprofit organization, and they have a very small arm where they sell a few handmade items by the people that they serve. These handmade baskets, and if you decide you want to buy one of them, you click add to cart, and it scrolls you down to the bottom of the same page and shows you what you bought. For some reason, it's not showing this right now. But typically, it refreshes nicely and shows you your running total. It's already updated this to say 2 items, and then you can, when you click checkout, it just takes you to PayPal things that you bought. So
But it should be showing the items.
it should be, and I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure why it isn't. But yeah, it'll show you a little running total of 2 of these small baskets at $5 each, and the total is $10, and then what the shipping cost is, and it takes you to PayPal to pay for it. So there's not really a proper checkout process where you go through the steps that you would on Amazon, but it's also very simple. And again, these folks have very simple needs and don't need to have a big, robust cart, because it's just a very small side of their business. Has anyone used Hika shopping cart? So I'm looking into that one as well. It seems to be a good balance of not too complicated and not too simple. I'm looking into moving a couple lines to that. Tienda is another one that I've used. The last time I used it was a couple years ago, and the client ended up abandoning the business entirely, so I haven't seen how it's moved up since then, but at the time that I was using it, it was still kind of in beta. It was very, very promising. It had a very nice interface, and it was pretty easy for clients to add, or the business owner to add items, but it was buggy at the time that I was using it, so I'd be interested to see if they've improved it since then.
Have you had the experience where someone wants you to do an e-commerce site and you want to try out a new extension for it, or maybe you haven't done an e-commerce site yet, and someone wants you to do one, so you have to pick, say, one of these from the list. What's that like as far as the learning curve? How much do you charge the customer for that, for at least part of that learning curve? And what if you get into it and you find out that it's, say you get into Virtual and you found out it was just too overwhelming to do. And so what's that experience like? I mean, how do you get started?
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, e-commerce is where the stakes are the highest because theoretically they could lose customers, theoretically they could lose money. You know, if there's something that goes drastically wrong and everyone's credit card numbers get stolen, you know, that's where the stakes are the highest, I think, is e-commerce. And that's where I think it pays to do as much research as you can, to talk to colleagues, to come to Joomla Day and talk to other people who have used whatever you're looking at, and really carefully read the reviews in the JDD too. I think is very important. And also, again, if the developer's site has a forum, go to the forum and see if there are 100 people with the same problem, and if the questions are being answered by the developer. Really,
It's just important to be able to have a forum and see what the last update or the last post in the forum was. If it was 2 years ago, then
yeah, because that tells you something.
Right.
It tells you something. Yeah.
I just wanted to respond to the part about how do you charge your customer for your learning curve. And, I don't have a set answer to that, but I think that I probably do a lot of work that I don't charge for when my learning curve is steep, but I try to keep in mind that part of what I'm charging and part of the reason why I can charge what I charge is because I need to do constant professional development. So I do charge for some of that, but not all of it.
You kind of realize at some point that what you're doing is not only learning curve, but what you would actually be doing for the client if you knew this extension backwards and forwards. There's some development time in
Right.
there,
The
so
fact
that's
that
how I justify it.
It's constantly changing, and we need to keep up to date, and that's part of it. Part of it's included in our hourly wage, but then on the other hand, some of it's just
I did
cost of doing business.
I did 2 e-commerce sites early on, and there weren't any decent Joomla extensions for shopping carts at that time, at least not that I could find. So I talked the client into buying a commercial product, which is actually a whole different installation on the website that you just link to with menu, with menu items. You just link to where to the URL of the cart. So sometimes I think you have to do that, and you really do have to make sure that whether it's forums or you talk to other people that are using it, that it does what the customer wants. We have a customer now who absolutely demands that the shopping cart, the e-commerce application, synchronize with QuickBooks point of sale. Now everybody says that, oh yeah, it works with QuickBooks. In fact, the application I'd used 2 times before said, oh yeah, we work with QuickBooks. It's either automatic or it's... Well, I went and checked into it, and I looked at the forums, and they said, oh, it was just a long list of this doesn't work, and that doesn't work, and something else doesn't work. And I found a company who found out that Intuit has a separate software development kit for POS than they do for QuickBooks. And so they rebuilt their whole application. Now, these applications are expensive, so if it's an enterprise type of thing, you just have to tell the client that he's going to pay $2,000 just for the application. But that's the only way he's going to get what he wants, because if you start learning about, if I start learning about Hike-A-Shop tomorrow, and I find out that it doesn't do what the client wants, or that it's buggy to do that, then I'm in that black hole that none of us likes to get into, where we haven't budgeted.
And also not only what the client wants now, but what the client's going to want in 6 months or in a year is sometimes different. And it's important to ask some of those questions up front. Like if, for example, a feature that a lot of people ask for down the line is, can people enter a coupon code? Can I set up a coupon code for 10% off? And if your cart doesn't have that included, they're out of luck. They wouldn't probably want to switch carts just to get something like that. But there are enough features like that that they haven't thought ahead. It's helpful if you can think ahead as best you can for them and ask some of those questions.
The person who mentioned the photo gallery, is that Flash-based or is that HTML5? Do you know?
It's not
I don't think it's much of that.
Probably JavaScript.
Yeah, that'd be my guess.
By the way, my hat is off to you. If you think that Photo Gallery is easy to use, I may be calling you.
Yeah, I didn't have a good experience with Photo Gallery. There are some easier solutions.
But I would suggest that for people who want certain things, that may be the only solution. And just as some people said, oh, Virtual Mart, piece of cake.
Right.
I looked at it, and the only time I looked at Virtual Mart was an existing installation. And I looked at it and I thought, it doesn't seem like a big deal to me. But that was me. I mean, lots of people just say it's an effort. But Foca it's got a lot of things in it. So
You could really manipulate it if you
Yeah.
want to.
yeah.
It has some excellent examples too on the site. If you go visit it, it has variations of what you can do.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, so this isn't flash-based or anything. These are just images that are.
Yeah, it's just JavaScript.
so Lightbox. Lightbox.
Yeah, it offers a multiple upload as well, which is really nice. So you don't have to upload one photo, so it allows you to do that. And really, the crux of it is you're just putting these items into categories, so you establish categories, and you just form them into the categories. And then how do you want it to look? Do you want the little icons there, the download icon, the little magnifying glass?
Yeah, I think to me what I don't like about Photo Gallery is all the extra stuff.
Yeah, I take it all, I strip it all out.
Yeah, it's good to know that you can do that.
Kind of tedious.
Do you have to resize all the photos or?
That's set within Foca. You can tell it to be whatever size that you want it to be. It's very flexible.
Yeah, there's so many photo galleries and slideshows out there. The JED, if you could be there all day looking at different ones. But what helps me narrow down is how simple or how complex the needs are of the client, first of all. And what the budget is too. If you can get a free one, then great. But also what the look of it is. Whether the template that they give you or the multiple templates that they give you would go nicely with the site as they are, or whether you need to do a lot of customization.
And we talked about the future a lot, really making sure that whatever that you're using is growing with Joomla.
Yeah.
It's so important that you read that in the JD, that you make sure that they're building for G5 and for the future, because you set your client up with something that's not going to be used in the future, you're in trouble.
I've done a fair amount of work with Ann, and we were using. She had recommended this rock slide show. That was really great, but when we went to 2.5, there was no version of it. So one of the one she has listed here is called Show Plus, and that's been really good. I find that they seem to this real simple galleries. If you just want a very simple, I just want the image to change. I just want something dynamic on the page. I don't need navigation buttons necessarily. I don't need a film strip at the bottom. I just need it to change. It seems to fall to a couple of different categories. Well, one is where it's a module. So you put it in a module position and it's replicable. So I can have one slideshow on one page and one on another. And when you're setting it up, you just set up simple parameters like the size that you want it, but you show it the directory where the photos are. And then changing it just as a matter of going into your file manager and changing the photos out. The other way is one's like, I can't remember if it's simple image gallery or simple picture slideshow, but one uses markup right in the article where you put a tag like VESPS in curly brackets. Then you put the name of the directory where the photos are. Then you put a close tag in curly brackets, and then it just works from there. And within that's a plugin. And within either the module or the plugin, you can set the effects. Usually try to keep it pretty simple, just a nice fade. You know, most people just don't need or want anything that fancy. And I'll tell you what really makes it. A couple of sites I've worked on just has amazing photography. And boy, if the pictures are great. You know, it's sort of like you know, you can make a simple dish in the kitchen and just kind of let the food speak for itself. You know, just in this case, you just let the photography speak for itself.
Yeah, I think you're referring to a simple image gallery that allows you to do the tagging on it. It is a plugin. It's it actually, I thought it was very easy to set up, very robust. All you really do is you create a folder somewhere in your FTP, you dump the photographs in it. You don't have to resize them unless you don't want them to be too big. But orientation doesn't matter. As soon as you go through the slideshow, it'll automatically continue to re-expand and resize the window for every photograph that's in it. It's really a good effect. It looks great.
Yeah, it does. I will mention, though, that for the sites that we've done, the designer that I've worked with had sized all the photos a certain size. You know, so there was that work that was involved there to make sure all the photos were the same size, and it wasn't a thumbnail zoom type of thing, for which there are other applications. So anything that, you know, certainly that takes that work away, you know, that you don't have to do that work is great. But in this particular case, it would be like 3 or 4 slides, 5 slides maybe, because some of it's only going to be on the page for a little while. Someone had a catering business, and on their gallery page they had all these wonderful pictures of food, and you know that you just want to sit there and think, oh man, I want that, you know, which is the desired, certainly the desired effect. And on that particular one, we did put a stop and start button, because sometimes people wanted to stop and say, what was the name of that, you know? But all those had to be sized a certain size, and you set your gallery that same size, and then they all look the same. So there was nothing, you know, automatic.
I'm going to mention a possible other category. I've had a few clients who want to get a better sense of kind of the analytics of a site that's being put up. And I found one resource called Stat Counter. And Stat Counter has been around for about a dozen years. You know, what they're trying to do is to get away from the idea of just putting a counter at the bottom of your page, so they can do it invisibly. But one of the things that they do, the reason I bring them up, is they allow you to generate Joomla-based code, so that you can then copy that code, go and create a custom HTML module in Joomla, tuck the code in that, and just stick it anywhere you want. You can have it on the page or off, but it allows you at least to gain the access to how the pages are being visited, how many visits, etc.
And what would be the advantage of that over, say, Google Analytics?
It's real easy to implement. One of the things I like about it also is they send a weekly update as to what's going in your page. It's just a really quick dashboard overview. I wouldn't say it's certainly better than Google Analytics, but it's definitely easier to implement.
What was your alternative? I didn't hear.
Google Analytics.
Google Analytics.
That's give you any kind of statistics you ever wanted. Not specific to Joomla, of course, but it's really neat to standard. Does anyone have other problems they need to solve, features they'd like to implement, they'd like input on what extensions might work well?
Does anybody, have you ever, at the last company I worked with, we always wanted the configurator. So like if you go to Dell and you're like, I want to buy a PC. I want this processor, I want this thing, I want that thing. Show it to me what it looks like. That is like gold. Like if we could do that and we can say, what do you want to do? You know, like the tools to make the tools. Like that thing would be gold if we could do that.
There's extensions for that, I think. I've never worked with them.
I've never found one that's, because like the last place was like food equipment manufacturers. So they're like, I want to buy a toaster, but I want it to be like this. I want it to be able to do like this many pieces an hour, or you know, and they know what they want, but they don't know what they want from our catalog. So like if they could choose what they wanted and they go, boop, here's what you want because that's the things you chose. You could do it manually, of course, but that stinks because it's not database driven then, and you know what I mean? So, like, that's one of the things that I could never find the holy grail of is, like, the configurator.
Well, I found the holy grail. Recently, I had a client who came to me with a similar question. It wasn't about physical products. It was about, it's for an organization called Humane Alliance, and they're a network of low-cost spay-neuter clinics for pets. And so they teach people to set up their own clinics around the country. So they wanted to be able to share their marketing ideas, but let people choose what might be good for my marketing based on different criteria. So for example, cost. We have to have it be free or low cost, or we can pay up to X amount, or we have a high budget, or what media it's being released in. Is this online? Is this small print as in like flyers, brochures? Is it large print as in billboards and bus station ads? Video, radio, television, things like that. So they had several different criteria, and within each criterion there were different values that you can choose from. So you check off all of your needs and wishes, and then it shows you the marketing ideas that match with those criteria. So we used an extension for that called Custom Properties, which is fantastic.
That's where I started using that.
Yeah, and I was just building with it yesterday, actually, for a completely different reason. There's a client I have who's a CSA farm in Massachusetts, and they have hundreds and hundreds of recipes and blog posts on their site, and they wanted people to be able to sort through them. We want a recipe for springtime that includes fennel and, that is Italian. And so we're setting up Custom Properties to do just that. So we've got it organized by ingredient, by cuisine, by season, and including several different criteria with many different values. And it's extremely easy to use.
Is that 2.5 now?
Set up and easy for people to use.
Is that ported to 2.5?
Yep. It works great.
What
It
do
does
you
cost money.
call
I think it
that?
costs about $60 or so, but I'd say it's well.
That's what it is called, Custom Properties. Is the name of it.
No, I know, but what is,
system?
what is it doing? Is it like a database search, something?
Basically, yeah. I mean, it's allowing you to narrow down by criteria that are more than just what category is this article in. Because you can have an article that can only be in one category. So they've tagged many of their blog posts with several different tags. So it might say fennel and spring and Italian and several other things, whatever ingredients are in the recipe. And you just narrow it down by any of those. What other problems do people have that they'd like to solve?
Well, I was going to ask, does anybody have a social community builder that is actually has a learning curve that's not harder than getting a PhD?
Have you worked with Joomla Social?
I've tried Job Social. I've tried Community Builder. I find it's such an arduous task to try to figure out how to use just these extensions to get some of the basics that you want done.
And you spoke before about creating ads, that you know how to manage that.
Yeah.
You can use that to the same degree.
And that's kind of how I've used it, but it's not as robust, obviously.
No. They have a little combination going on to work with the both, but
Yeah.
it's challenging.
Yeah, and I think we all face the challenge. I mean, every so often we'll say, hey, I just need a quick extension. I'll throw it in here, and you find that it takes you a day and a half to
No,
figure out
that's
how to
pretty-
install the extension.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
Social.
My challenge is integration, and I can never find integrators that do what I want.
Integrating what?
Different applications, like WordPress and Joomla. As an example, I know there's integrators for that, but for other things as well. And
That's something I don't have much experience with. Has anyone done similar things with?
Can you give an example of why would you be doing that?
I'm trying to think of an example, but for instance, just go back to the Joomla and WordPress. Some people want the WordPress, but they also want the other capabilities of Joomla. And there are, sharing registrations and sharing the data of the users between the two applications is what.
I think the question that comes up for me when I hear those things are, why do we need both, and why can't we just go and build from one or the other?
Right.
Why do you need two databases? Because it starts to get sticky when you're working
Right.
with the users, and
Right.
because
But it
Joomla
is-
has
there-
blogging capabilities.
Remember, it's SQL though. So if you get some fancy SQL guy, it's database.
Yeah,
So if it's in there, you can get it out, and you can port it to anything you. I mean, MySQL talks to. You want to talk? Oh, I want my user list out of my website to go populate my ERP system in SAP. Well, that database can ODP connection to your web server. Have a nice day. Like it'll read that. And it may not be as fast as you want it to be, but it's still just SQL. So you could do it, but it's not like there's something that's going to come off the shelf for that. You know. That gets a little
Jen and I were
sticky.
talking about Moodle, just before we started here. And it's a learning management system, and there is some integration between Moodle and Joomla, but it's not perfect. And Kristen, you can talk to that a bit.
The same thing is happening when you're dealing with two databases, and it's just, do you really need to work that way? So working with one or the other is recommended. Moodle and Joomla have created, what are they calling it now? Joomla. And they're trying to work that together. I haven't worked with it too much,
We're trying to integrate.
but yeah.
That's what I mean.
And the main value of it is that you log in one place.
Right.
I use Moodle and Joomla, and my students could log in one place, but
Right.
it didn't work. I mean, I'm sure that somebody better could figure it
I have
out,
the same
but it
experience.
just
I
wasn't
know it could
working.
work, but it was turning into just too much.
Along those same, like single sign-on is like huge, right? Like we don't at work we don't buy anything unless it works single sign-on because I don't want to have to log in. Like right now, our stupid USA.net hosted email exchange, we're so mad at them. Like, wait a minute, what year is it? You don't do single sign-on. I have to manage 2 different databases, 2 different passwords just to get my email. And so we're dropping them and going with somebody else, right? But so along those lines, like, has anybody integrated LDAP with their Joomla site, like to make an intranet? Like that's what we're gonna do at work too. Like when you go to the intranet website, it should just take my Windows authentication and just log me in. It says, "Hi, Corey," at the top. Like it should already know who I am. I don't have to sign in again. So I mean, has anybody ever done LDAP like that? Like I know you can at work, but I've never personally done it. I know there's extensions out there, but I've never done it from Active Directory, which is great because you can install Joomla like on your local network. It doesn't have to be at SiteGround or Rockin' or any of those. Like, you could just install it on your web server at work, so it's all on your local area network. But I don't want to have to, some of the workflows and things that you might integrate need to know who those people are. So like, I'm going to kick off my vacation request form. I got to know who it's from, and because you're doing or like something for like we're thinking about doing like something for QA. So like when I go in there and I say I've approved this, it needs to know who I am and timestamp it with like who I'm logged in as. So it needs to know who I'm logged in as. So you got to do that through there. So that's another thing that's really cool, but I've never done it. There are, but I've never done it. That's why I was asking, like, has anybody ever done it? Because it's one thing to say it's out there, and it's another thing to go do it.
It's another whole grammar.
Right.
Yeah, single sign-on. That's one of those things that's a buzzword, like the cloud. I said the
I have
cloud.
some questions about permissions, and you were kind of talking about it with having, I forget exactly what you were saying, but you needed a client, they needed to only see particular things, and another client only particular things. So, as we may know, Joomla 1.5 didn't have these capabilities that now 2.5 has.
ACL.
So I think my question is, and have you done this, I'm in a situation, I'm working in 2.5, and I have that situation at hand where I'm going to have clients that need to only see particular information and log in. So can Joomla 2.5 do that just in the core? Do we know?
That's what it said.
Right?
That's what in my last class you said that you'd be able to do that.
And then my question to you in the back would be, why would you be using that component then to do that? Because doesn't it already do that in the core?
You know what? I found that it wasn't as black and white as you might think. Like the ACL, that's great. Go into Joomla, say make a new group, and tell me what you get to choose from. Wait, what? I can make another group and call it whatever I want, but it's still just registered users. So it's once they're logged in as a registered user, how do you then delineate them from this registered user is this kind and this registered user is this kind?
So
that's what front-end user access allowed me to do, is say, yes, you're a registered user, but you're registered user group A and registered user group B, and separate them. So like, one of the things we did a long time ago is like, how do you separate, how do I not let customer A know about customer B?
Yeah, that's what I want.
Separating their documents, not letting them even see, because at first we tried to do it and it was like, you know what, they could see this folder and it said customer A on it, but when like customer B can still see the folder name, they go in there and it says 0 documents. We can hide the documents, but they still see the folder. And we're like, well, that's kind of dumb. Then I know that these two competing people are in there and they see each other. That's no good. Now it's a little different. I think DocMan has done some stuff where you can hide that, and then ACL, front-end user access, even, it takes, the front-end user access thing that I'm using, that's the name of it, by the way, front-end user access. But, so, it's agnostic to what you're using. So if it's DocMan or EasyBlog or what, it doesn't matter. They're saying this module, this link for this person in this place. Like, it goes down to even to like the minutia of what it is you want. And it's just checkboxes, and you create your own groups and things like that. And so it takes Joomla, like it accesses the ACL through the regular Joomla stuff, but it takes it to a whole other level and doesn't care about what extension you're using. It just is like, oh, it doesn't matter I don't care what it is. You want it on that page for this person in this place? Fine, checkbox.
And I think it was even available for 1.5 even before the ACL was included in it.
Yes, because it like, I don't know what it does, but it does it good.
But it works.
Does it well. It works for me, great.
It looks like there's a free version of that.
I bought I bought it though.
I had to use the free version for someone, and it worked great. It was for an association of cross-country ski areas in western Massachusetts, and so each ski area had to be able to log in and edit their ski conditions for the day. So they couldn't edit any other ski areas' ski conditions, just their own. And it worked great. It would take them straight to their page when they logged in, and nobody had any difficulty. And these were not technical people at all, so it's very easy to use from the front.
What's the name of it?
Front-end user access.
I wrote it down.
Yeah. This is a boring thing, but
I forget why I bought that one instead of just getting the free one.
yeah, it may be that you had particular needs that my client didn't need, so I just want a free one and I just like
No, there was something that I just had to have though. Like, that I was like, I would never sell that to a customer with like, I wasn't an ad or something, but I would never sell like go and get something and then have like an ad on someone's website that they didn't approve of, like just to get the free one.
It says the free version only protects articles, components, and these categories.
Not modules though, right?
Right.
That's why I wanted it. Because what I wanted to do was, once the person logs in, that user menu that they get to see, that's the opportunity for the owners of the company or whatever to say, here's your calendar, who's the company or person, or here's your link. It's very specific. So it was that user menu module that I really needed to access, and I think she just put it as the modules is what I was after.
Anybody else have problems that they're looking to solve?
Languages. That's my new thing. Anybody done? I kind of tried it. I'm trying to wrap my head around how does it do it and how well does it do it. Like, I don't want to have to go get a Spanish person and say, here's my website, please translate it and tell me all the words I need to know. I wanted it to just like you use Google or Bing and just do the translation.
Yeah, you're still gonna have to hire somebody to translate your content correctly so that it...
Not necessarily though. I found one the other day called G-Translate that looks at your page, ports it to Google real quick, comes back and translates it for you. Now, if you buy the Pro version, you can, well, obviously you'd have it proofread so it doesn't come back and say something pornographic like website in Spanish or something, you know what I mean? So, but if you buy the Pro version, you can manually change it. So if it doesn't quite make sense, you could go and say, okay, in this particular instance, switch the verbs around or something so it makes sense in that language. And I would have somebody proofread it who is fluent in the language and say, is this really what I want to say in English and Spanish, and make sure that they coincide. But it supposedly does it on the fly. Like, there's no, here's 50 pages of stuff, please translate it for me. It just does it. There's no writing of the website. Haven't tested it. I actually left to come here instead of doing that.
Does anyone else use Joomfish? I haven't used it myself.
I used it once, but it doesn't. That was a big shock. It doesn't translate. The translation is very well provided.
Has anybody done a multiple site, one database, multiple domain name sites? No? That's true.
By accident.
It's cheaper.
By accident.
Yeah, Mark did that the other day, but it was a feature, it was a bug, not a feature. He said it was easy, I think.
Oh, dear.
Can I understand what you're, yeah, I wanted to understand what she was asking.
Oh, me? Oh. I have a client who sells online, and she wants 5 different domain names to all be using the same e-commerce database.
That's a different question.
And I tried to use multi-sites, which is a paid thing, but it seems to be very awkward. And I wondered if anybody had found anything better.
So is it 5 different sites?
They're not just all redirects, it's not just that the URLs are redirecting to one site.
Well, that's what
Or
I
they
tried,
do
but it's
different-
got to be different template, different.
So it's got to look, so it is 5 different sites then?
Yes.
Yeah, they're not all, they don't all look the same.
Right. And
It's difficult.
Use a different template.
Yeah, I mean,
you could,
yeah.
but my problem then was
That's
that
what I-
sometimes it would go to the wrong template, or it would
That's definitely not a feature.
no. It would get confused.
Yeah, because that's in the new, like, the gantry, whatever, that you can make a template on every page of your website, like,
Oh,
make
yeah.
it look different on every single one, so you could kind of do that. Like mine, I did something really simple where it's like, on the home page, it does this scrolling banner at the top, but on every other page, it just has a static one. And that's just checkboxes in the
Right.
template
Oh,
manager.
yeah, I use gantry.
Yeah.
But this was beyond. This was
She really wants 5 different
5
websites.
different DNS or sites, all using the same database.
I think I would ask the client then, why, really why, should those all be in one database? Why, what's their,
Well, to make purchases all on one system.
So
right, then
they're
why does
stock.
she have 5 different domain names?
Uh,
5 different?
Well, I can see why. From a marketing point of view, she's got different audiences, different niches, and she doesn't want to repeat the overhead of maintaining 5 databases, which will introduce areas, and the truth is it's all coming from the same warehouse.
That's right.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
That sounds
Actually.
like a custom job,
Could be.
inexpensive.
There's something called virtual DNS or something that somebody mentioned last
Well,
night.
I don't think the DNS part is the hard part. It's the website A is reading from the same database as website B, and then when you make a change, like, you get into all kinds of locks on the tables and stuff. Like, okay, so I just purchased the last one. Simultaneously around the world, somebody else also is simultaneously buying it on another website. Like, how the heck is that going to work? Like, those stock quantities are like.
Different products. That would be categories of different products for each site.
Oh, okay. So they're not actually buying the same thing on the. Okay.
No, it's not the same data. It's not the same products on all the
But you
different.
just want it in the same place so they can.
Wasn't she fabulous? Yay!